Alright lads, welcome back to the channel. I've not been uploading recently because I've been falling out of love with War Thunder really, not really been having fun playing it. And with the latest update, it's kind of made it even worse to be honest, because War Thunder is just running off hype now. Every patch they like hype, oh it's the F-18, even though it's absolute dog shit, and everyone knew it was going to be dog shit, and it turned out to be dog shit. Next they're going to be doing it with probably USS, what's it called, Iowa. Oh, Iowa's coming, Tirpitz is coming, Bismarck's coming. But they've run out of top tier jets to add really, unless they had like F-22s. They've run out of top tier tanks unless they go like futuristic shit or all the obscure Soviet prototype tanks. But anyway, this is a bit of a long introduction to me just going over the changes that have happened in the latest update, what has been good, what's been shit, and has the meta changed in any way. So we're going to start off with a real stinker in my opinion, and this is the F-18 Hornets. There's 3 in the American territory and 1 in the Swedish in the form of the Finnish F-18C. I'll be honest with you, all 4 of these planes are just pretty dog shit in my opinion. There's no reason to use them over the F-16C or the F-15E in both air-to-ground and air-to-air engagements. Generally speaking, the F-18s have good avionics and decent weapon systems, but completely fail in the department of thrust-to-weight ratio and sustained turning really. The best of these planes is the 12.3 FA-18A. This is purely because it avoids the very brutal uptees to 13.7 that the FA-18C early is getting at the minute, which is the premium aircraft. And the third variant for the Americans, the F-18C Late, which gets 10 AMRAAMs, is just larger and heavier compared to pretty much any other 14.0 fighter. It doesn't have the kinematics to go high and spam them. I believe it only gets 4 data link channels anyway, so most of those missiles are going to be useless. The only advantage really of the F-18C Late is that you can't really overspeed and basically lock yourself out of being able to notch a missile, but that's one advantage in a meta that is already incredibly brutal, especially for men like me who are basically approaching retirement age now, 28 years old, basically an old man as a gamer, can't really twitch as much anymore. I spent my days growing up in Battlefield 3 and 4 and Bad Company 2, but playing War Thunder has truly killed me. Anyway, enough about the shitty American slop. Let's go on to the Soviet edition, which is the Su-30SM, which I guess technically is a Russian edition, seeing as it only entered service in 2018 or something like that. Pretty wild really, seeing as we have such modern Soviet equipment, but still using 80s variants of American planes generally. So the Su-30SM, it is a huge, stinking, sloppy pile of manure when it comes to the aerodynamic department and the engine power. It is by far the weakest of the flanker variants in terms of kinematics. You aren't very fast whatsoever. It's pretty noticeable in game. You can get high and fast, but there are planes like the Typhoon that are going to just knob on you really. The F-15E, sorry, going to give you very stiff competition. The Su-30 does receive a more advanced radar, which is good. It also has up to 12 Fox 3 missiles or active radar homing missiles. Again, pretty decent. But again, the thing that makes the Typhoon and the F-15 so dominant at the minute is the ability to get high and fast, launch those missiles and then go defensive. The time they've launched and already in a notch, you basically aren't really in a position to fire, leaving pretty much everyone else on the battlefield being a little bit at a disadvantage in my opinion. And again, I'm not an amazing pilot, I'm pretty bad at flying. I used to be pretty good at props, still fairly decent, but top tier jets, I'm 28, too old for being. Can't keep track of all the 32 people in a lobby anymore. You just get hit by some random guy that you don't see. But again, that's a my skill issue. Another new thing with the Su-30SM is the addition of the R77-1s. These are basically have the long range of an AMRAAM, but they still retain the decent maneuvering performance of the older R77. One issue though is in the very long range shots, the missile does wobble when it gets to a fairly slow airspeed, but like within 40 kilometers, basically identical to an AMRAAM in my place, well, from my play experience, which granted isn't a lot because again I don't like top tier anymore. We then move on to Britain's worst export since commentary YouTubers. That's right, this is the Harrier T.10, a premium Harrier. Who in their right mind would purchase this piece of crap? It is a tandem seat Harrier, so it's even heavier than the regular Harriers, which are already known for being very late to the battlefield, not really being able to do anything. And this thing is it's a ground attack plane in general, to be honest. A lot of people said on Twitter when I was speaking to them, they said, well, it's good for ground realistic, which maybe, but why really? I don't really understand why you'd pay like $70 or $80. I can't even tell you how much this is, but why would you pay so much just for a ground attack plane? It's pretty mad to me. It does have AIM-9Ls and some pretty potent air-to-ground missiles, such as the AGM-65Gs, I believe, as well as the slightly more advanced Elm. I can't really remember. But anyway, I have no idea why you'd buy this. Completely do not buy it from me. I've tried to play a few games in it. Everyone knows how to counter AIM-9Ls now. You take 15 minutes to get into a match and you're probably going to get shot by some J7D guy that's 5 kilometers above you with his PL5Bs. So yeah, not really enjoying the Harrier. Didn't like it. Pile of shite. China got the J11B. This is a nice addition, but it's still not really meta defining or changing whatsoever. You can't really carry a high amount of air-to-ground weapons. I believe you can carry 6 Fox 3 missiles. These are the PL-12s. Very good missiles indeed. The J11B is basically just like a Chinese version of the flanker. The Chinese were using a lot of imported parts with the J11A, and they obviously wanted to domesticate the production for national security reasons and for, I guess, internal revenue. You also get the PL-8Bs, I believe. I think that's what they're called. It's basically the Python 3 missile with IRCCM functionality, making them very, very potent in close range. They've got 40 Gs of maximum pull, so very, very good for dogfighting. Not as good as the R-73s, but still very nice. It also gets air-to-ground functionality in the form of laser-guided bombs and the KH-29s as well, I believe. So it's a nice little all-rounder in ground realistic. But in terms of a modern top-tier fighter, and I say modern in relation to War Thunder, it just can't hold its own compared to like a Typhoon or an F-15. We're really starting to see now where there's like a 2-tier system at top tier, ironically enough. And finally, for the aeroplanes, we have the new premium slop available for the Israelis. It is the F-16A Netz. This thing sits at battle rating 12.7 with absolutely no Fox 1 or long-range weaponry. It's only reliant on 6 AIM-9Ls or 6 Python 3 missiles, which granted are very good IR missiles. But most planes at this battle rating are going to be using stuff like R-27ERs, R-24Rs, R-24Ts, that sort of stuff. So they can hit you at like 10 kilometers, whereas you have to get within like 3. And that, even then, they can just flare your missile very easily, as both the AIM-9L and the Python 3 are incredibly flare sensitive at the minute, and most players know how to easily flare them. Don't even really need to drop your throttle anymore like you used to, or you do with like the AIM-9M for example, because neither of the missiles have IRCCM. This is a plane where you basically can't really go into a fight. You have to wait for an enemy to engage one of your friendlies and then kind of like be a bit of a rat player. You kind of just have to wait on the outskirts of a battle and then come in when people are unaware. It's like waiting for someone to go into a toilet and then following them in and mugging them. You're basically waiting for them to make a mistake. Again, for the price of like 80 quid, absolutely not worth it whatsoever. And with that said, I'm tired of talking about planes. Let's go on to some nice tanks. And Gaijin truly added an American monster. At the battle rating of 8.3, we have the XM246. This has 2 35mm basically nuke launchers. This fires the APHE round. If you've been on YouTube the last couple of days, you've probably seen every War Thunder content creator ever making videos on it because it just absolutely melts through people. It is, strictly speaking, a worse Gepard, I believe. It's not as fast, but it is more survivable. At least the hull is. But around that battle rating, there are a lot of soft-skinned vehicles, which are basically one-shot kills, really, if a round penetrates. So the XM246, not really used in its ground-to-air capabilities, I guess. It's just an absolute monster on the battlefield, especially if you get on an enemy's side. If you're a fan of blatantly overpowered premiums, then the French and German CLOVIS premiums may be for you. The French one is purchased for Golden Eagles, and the German one is purchased on the Gaijin store. Gaijin clearly seeing who their main customer base is, just dirty German players getting the best vehicles. By the way, France still doesn't have a top tier premium. Every other nation does now. Some nations have multiple top tier premiums. France still does not, and that's coming from an Englishman. complaining on behalf of our French brothers in arms. So what is the CLOVIS? It's basically a Marder chassis, as you can probably guess from the name, with what I assume is a CLOVIS turret. It is a auto-loaded oscillating turret with a 5-second reload, I believe. It has a laser rangefinder, which is very rare for the battle rating of 8.0, making you basically... It gives you all the advantages in medium range to long range engagements. Most vehicles at the battle rating of 8.0 aren't going to have any sort of laser rangefinder, so you're basically going to always have the first shot. Now the downside of the CLOVIS is you don't have a gun stabilizer. A lot of vehicles around battle rating 8.0, with the exception of maybe the Leopard 1, are going to be using basically early gun stabilizers, which means if you are mobile in this thing, your first shot accuracy is going to be pretty low unless you come to a complete stop. But that is really where the downsides end for the CLOVIS. So it has a very high power round, 400mm of penetration. I found the damage to be quite... It's very... Sometimes you like hit and you just do no damage. Sometimes you absolutely nuke vehicles. But it does have 400mm of pen, so you can go through pretty much anything if you hit a flat surface. It is a heat round, not heat FS, so again, any sort of angled armor, and it is going to give you a bit of trouble. But with the rapid-fired gun, you can basically just sit on a nice hill. You have 8 degrees of gun depression as well, so find a nice ridge line, sit there, press the laser rangefinder button, whatever you've got it bound to on an enemy, and profit. Simple as that, really. 8.0, Germany and France are both pretty good as well, especially the French one with the AMX-50, TO-90, TO-90, whatever it's called. But again, I think I'll just say, like, there's no excuse people could ever say that. Like, Gaijin is making so much money on this game that they could literally just not update the game for a year and just focus on one big patch to improve, or like make a new game mode. Like, they aren't desperate for money, they're just pumping out premiums for the sake of it and then complaining that they can't do anything. Like, they could halve the price of every single premium in the game and still be making a shitload of money. But again, let's move on to another absolute dogshit vehicle. This in theory should have been pretty good. I actually have a clip here of me spawning into my British Rapier to shoot down an incoming enemy nuke. Now I actually managed to hit the nuke vehicle before it drops a bomb, but it gets a hit and then I get turned into a new type of glass variant. So there's currently a bug at the minute, and I assume this is the proximity fused on the nose. It basically detonates way too early to do any damage. The warhead as well is also very small, so you don't really have a huge blast in terms of the damage. I'm not sure whether Gaijin haven't modelled the fragments in the blast frag warhead correctly, or whether the fuse is basically proximity detonating way too soon. I don't know what's the problem, but the damage is basically non-existent at the minute, basically making it unusable. Japan also got a very nice addition as well in the form of the Type 74 Red Star. This has a fully stabilized gun with a laser rangefinder at battle rating 8.3. It only has APDS round and Heat FS, so no Sabo round or APFS DS as we know it, but at 8.3 the 350mm of pen is it is far more than good enough for the battle rating. Not really any downsides to this vehicle other than the fact it's Japanese and at battle rating 8.3. Don't really have the best backup, to be honest, but it's an absolute powerhouse. 8.3, you don't really see much competition. I found it to be very, very good. The only thing that gives you issue is the 8.7 Soviet lineup, but again, pretty decent little premium. I don't know why they just want to add so many premiums instead of like actually doing something productive. We then come on to my favourite addition this update, which is the Chinese VT5. This basically trades all sorts of armor protection for mobility, and it also drops the gun down from a 125mm back down to a 105. The round it fires though is basically a Chinese equivalent of 3BM 42 Mango with 490mm of pen at point blank range, so you still have a very good ability to hand out damage to enemy players, and at battle rating 10.7 it is a fantastic little addition. China mainly only has an 11.0 lineup though, but again, it's a lovely little vehicle. 2nd gen thermals I believe, could be wrong on that as well. It does have an autoloader as well, 5-second autoloader at this battle rating at 10.7, faster than both Soviet and NATO vehicles, so lovely little light tank for running around the battlefield, above average mobility, above average firepower, what's not to like? Probably the one good thing Gaijin have done this update. The Italians also got another premium. They already had one at 11.7 and now they've got another for some reason. This is a premium copy and paste of the base Ariete, which was well known for being dog shit. It has no real armor protection and it's only really redeemed by the addition of DM53 for its 120mm cannon. But that is basically where the good stuff ends. It's very bulky, it's not very mobile. It's not like they cut down on armor protection in order to make it a absolute monster in a straight line speed. No, this thing is slow, unprotected, and it only really can talk about it has a very high pen and gun. That is basically where the good stuff ends. I think it only gets first gen thermal images as well. I could be wrong on that, I've not checked it. But again, it's just an Ariete copy and paste. Not really sure why they added this. Could never recommend buying it. It's absolute dog shit. You better stick in at 10.7 with Italy. Maybe get the 9.7 Ariete VRCC, is it? Sorry. And that's basically everything for ground. Let's cover the two main changes for naval. Well, I guess there's three changes. They've changed the way that naval damage models work now. Instead, it used to basically just be hit points off your crew member's life, and you could cause damage to the ship's hull, which would just mean you'd sink after taking a single hit. Not realistic whatsoever, especially when you were getting battleships being sank by destroyers for some reason. Now they've basically split the hull of vessels into bulkheads, which is more realistic, but it's still quite arcadey. You basically have to destroy 2 of the amount of bulkheads, and then the ship will start to progressively sink. You can still knock a ship out from accumulated damage per se, or knocking out the crew members. In general, naval is in a pretty terrible place at the minute though. The damage just is so inconsistent. Battleship fights it's not fun to play battleships at all. You just shoot at someone for 15 minutes, then a destroyer shoots them with one set of HE, it causes a fire, kills someone, and then the destroyer gets the kill for some reason and you get like 10 SL for an assist. Not fun whatsoever. You better stick in with destroyers and cruisers in my opinion, with the sweet spot and the main meta of naval at the minute being 5.7. If you've got the Admiral Hipper, or I think that's a Tetri version. If you have the ship that went with Bismarck, I can't remember the name. It's the premium 5.7 heavy cruiser. It'll come to me when I finish recording. I want to thingy it. But anyway, 5.7. If you got a premium at that, I'd recommend buying it, using it. Very, very good for naval. But the two main additions for naval is going to be HMS Warspite. Pretty bad addition in my opinion. It's an amazing ship. The only crime the British Empire ever committed was scrapping Warspite in my opinion. But yeah, it's pretty much useless in game at the minute. It's not unique, there's nothing about it good. Lots of other ships in the British Tetri already have 8 15-inch guns. HUD already has it, which is faster and better protected. Pointless update in my opinion. Nice to have in the game. I thought this would be a premium, but anyway. For the Americans, we also have the USS Colorado. This is a standard class battleship made at the end of World War I. I think it's 1922 when it was either laid down or entered service. So it's a World War I vintage battleship fighting very modern ships in War Thunder. It is quite survivable and it is the first American ship which gets 16-inch cannons. It only gets 8 of them though. The reloads are absolutely abysmal with like 45 seconds when stock. No idea why the American battleships have such a low rate of fire compared to everyone else, but I guess Guardian just has a hate boner towards America. That's pretty much it for naval. It's in a very, very bad state, at least when it comes to battleships. Cruisers and destroyers it's kind of fun. You can make money there pretty effectively. I'd say that the amount of players on each team now and in a game is way too high. You have like 15 ships spawning at the start of a match and everyone just spams each other. Not realistic in the slightest. Just spread those players out a bit. Just make the maps bigger. It's literally just an ocean. Just spawn people and stop people being able to shoot from over fucking mountains. It's so annoying. Like one team will get they'll spawn next to a big cliff and they can just sit behind that and they can spot you through cliffs somehow and just shoot at you from behind cover and you can't really do anything. So annoying. Anyway, I'm coping and seething. So let's cover the last thing that they've added in this update, which is the ability to recycle your unused things, I guess. I actually did this quite a bit. I actually accidentally recycled like over 100 universal backups, which gave me a somewhat popular tweet. This is actually quite a good addition, I believe. I recycled like 200 things and I got quite a lot of silver lines. I think I got like 3 million silver lines or something like that. It's a pretty decent feature. Again, it's a pretty sad state of affairs when the best addition to this update is like the ability to get rid of things which no one uses. It's just a redundant feature in War Thunder that they're finally addressing after like years of gameplay. They also fixed the glitch where if you unlock a module, it won't let you put the remaining... It's like a glitch where if you unlocked a module, anything you had left over would just get eaten. You wouldn't be able to put it into another module. Anyway, that's pretty much it, lads. It was a little bit of a ramble. All my videos from now on are probably not going to be scripted because I just don't really enjoy playing War Thunder anymore. I'm just going to be focused. I'm thinking of doing like more historical videos. I've been working on like a Soviet SAM guide and a Soviet tank guide because I've pretty much been reading my ass off about Soviet stuff recently. But anyway, thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you got something out of this ramble. I'll see you all later. And again, thanks for watching, lads.